Hello, professionals. My name is Rico Aladdin, and I am the founder of Professional Lunch. Today, we are bringing you this episode of Professional Lunch at NDSU, and we are at the Bison Information Network studio. And my guest is an IT director. I'm going to give my guest a chance to introduce himself and what he does. So, Director Lanners, tell us who you are and what you do.
Sure. So my name is Kevin Lanners. I am the IT director for, I guess the short answer is I'm the IT director for Wanzik Construction. But recently, Wanzik, or I should say our parent company, MozTech, has acquired a bunch of different companies, and they grouped them into logical organizations. So we're the Clean Energy and Infrastructure Group, and my team has kind of taken over IT now for 9 different companies in that group. So I'm technically the IT director for all 9, ranging from trying to remember Vancouver, Washington to Miami, Florida. So, and everywhere in between. So.
Well, your hands are full.
My hands are full, yes.
Wow, man, we definitely want to talk to you because we want less experienced professional students that are either graduating with an IT degree right now to hear about what you have to say. And given what you say with for these companies, we want to know, how is it going with the job? How, what do you do at this job?
Sure. So in my role, I oversee 2 different departments within our IS group. The service desk, which a lot of people are familiar with when you think about IT. It's the people you call when your computer's broken or you need a piece of software. So I oversee that team, as well as our systems engineering team, which is made up of our developers, administrators, DBA, we have some Power BI developers. So I oversee both those teams and kind of manage the day-to-day of how we service our customers, as well as helping to coordinate the resources on my team as they execute on projects for the business.
Absolutely. And I understand you teach also. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so a few years ago, I got a call from a friend of mine that I worked with in the IT field.
Yes.
And he was moving into a new role at MSUM and asked me to take over one of his classes. So I teach OM 395 at MSUM. It's Computer Applications for Technologists. So essentially, it's a course about Microsoft Office 365. So I focus on the technology, but I also focus on communication skills and how to use the technology to better interact in a professional environment. I think it's a very to me, and I'm not biased or anything, but I think it's a very important class for students who are, in college and perhaps, maybe using G Suite or just using technology on their phone to really understand these are the tools that are utilized in a workplace. Even simple things like checking someone's calendar before you schedule a meeting. Those are the types of skills I'm trying to get across to my students that are very important when you enter the workforce.
Absolutely. Yes, and I should have said, I guess my question should have been, I remember you were my teacher when I was at MSUM getting my undergrad degree. And I should have said, do you still teach? That's my question.
I do. As a matter of fact, it's the midterm finals week. So I have some final presentations going on tonight and through the weekend.
Cool. Your hands are full. Your hands are full. So tell me a little bit, from teaching now to the business world, tell me a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I actually started out at MSUM myself. It was only MSU when I was there. It was quite a while ago. I started out as a mass comm major with an emphasis in advertising. Wow. So I grew up on a farm in southwestern Minnesota. Didn't really see a big city in the types of jobs that were available. Computers were just coming onto the scene really at that time. I remember it was probably my junior or senior year, we got our first Mac lab in the school. Otherwise, we're doing typing on literal typewriters before that. So I'm aging myself a little bit here now. Yeah, I came up to school and really thought that mass communications and advertising was the direction I'd go in. But even throughout school, or even back in high school, I was a very curious kid about technology.
Wow.
I remember I had this radio once when I was a kid that AM, FM, and that picked up airplanes flying overhead. It was a weather thing. I took it apart. My parents couldn't stand it because I wanted to know how everything worked.
Wow.
And I'd take things apart. Unfortunately, I didn't always get things back together. But, you know, I went to MSUM for, I think, about 5 years.
Okay.
Did not get a degree.
Okay.
And then fell into IT. I started working on a support desk myself and doing that sort of stuff. And then this was kind of in the early ages of the internet. So web pages were just starting to come along. They were really basic. And I got a job as a web page designer because I kind of felt that's merging my two loves. You know, I'm getting information out there, advertising, marketing, but I'm also coding and, you know, working with technology. Very quickly, I moved into a management position there. So I oversaw like a team of 20 developers. And then that company did not last very long. So I moved along into some different careers, you know, stayed in web development for a while, eventually moved into consulting. So I would go around the country and implement service desk software for different companies. So I'd travel from San Diego to New York City, implementing software for these organizations that wanted to better track their service desk. So I really started at that point to get an understanding of, you know, the support side of things and how companies track their metrics and track how they're dealing with people. So about that time, I met my future wife, and traveling became too much because we had a child. So then I started getting into more of the analysis side of things. I did some DBA work, sort of, more on the development side of things, business intelligence. And then eventually 8 years ago, I was able to secure the IT manager position at Wanza Construction. And since then, I've been, like I said, 8 years I've been there.
Wow.
I've been promoted to IT director recently. And we went from having, when I started, there was me and one other guy on the IT team. And then we had another team that kind of supported our financial system. So that was about, I think, 4 people on that team. And so really 6 of us. And now I think we're about 50 people strong in the IS team.
Wow, that's such a extension.
Yes.
Wow. Man, so how do you like it?
I love it.
Wow.
I love it. I think it's really a combination of the things that I enjoy the most, and that is solving problems and helping people. I get to establish the strategy and the direction for our IT team and what we do. But really my love is on that support side. Those skills I learned while implementing software for people to provide proper service to their end users really stuck with me and really made me think about how I would do things if I ever got into a position where I was leading that group. So
I have to ask, you know, you've seen the excitement as you talk about the job. Would you consider this your dream job?
Wow.
I hope I didn't put you on the spot here, but
you know, as far as it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
Funny story. I actually interviewed, this is many years ago, for a job, and the guy who interviewed me asked me, "What is your dream job?"
Okay.
And I said, you know, I don't know if I really have a dream job. Okay. I give my all. You know, I'm a curious person. I like solving problems. I really can't think of what a dream job would be for me. He hated the answer. I didn't get the job. He told me that's the reason why I didn't get the job. I would say, hopefully my boss doesn't see this. I love my job. You saw the excitement in my eyes. I really do. I love my job. I think if I had to say or pick one, though, I would say teaching is probably where more of my passion lies. I really enjoy that direct interaction with those students and helping them out there. I'd say yes and no. How about that?
Yes, that's okay. That's okay. I mean, the reason why I ask is because sometimes when we are talking about careers, we want, a student out there who's watching this. Oh, yeah, I see the passion in that. I wonder what it takes to have, that's his dream job. So because my goal is to show how professionals interact with their careers. What do they do? What they do and how they talk about it. And that will incite them to either go into that career or not go into that career. So that's the goals here.
So, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just hit my microphone. I guess, in that sense, I might say, yes, it is my dream job, because I think it is a perfect combination of the things I'm passionate about.
Yes.
Curiosity, fixing problems, understanding things, looking at a situation and trying to figure out what is our best path forward. So the strategy really comes in there and leading the team. But then it's also about helping people. Yes. And I love helping people. I talked about it with the students. Yes. But my biggest sense of pride at Wanzik is really the level of service and the feedback that we get from our customers when we help them. Not to give anything away for anybody who may apply for a service desk position at our organization in the future, but I have a key word that I listen for in every interview. If an interviewee uses the word empathy or describes empathy in the interview, they already have a leg up. To me, that is really where that begins. Yes. And where we can, and I use this in my leadership role as well, is I try to always put myself in my employees' shoes, in my customers' shoes. What are they feeling? What are they thinking? If I say this, if I make this decision, what impact will this have on the customer? Not on me, on my employee or on my customer. So.
Wow, wonderful, wonderful. Wow. I must say, this is why we have professional lunch. We want to hear this kind of conversation because we know that professionals that are listening to this will take this and work with that, because empathy and in compassion and talking about these things is very important. Now we're gonna take a break because this is professional lunch we're having right now, and I'm so glad that Director Lanners is here with me. So we're gonna take a short break, and we will be right back. Okay, we are back with Director Lanners here. We are having so much fun in this professional lunch episode. Again, we are at NDSU. We are at the Bison Information Network studio. We are so grateful for the warm welcome they are giving us here. So we are grateful for them. Professional lunch is really grateful for NDSU and also for Bison Information Network. Now, Director Lanners, we get to the part where we're going to talk about some of the things that you love about your career.
Okay.
Now, you're welcome to tell me things about teaching, and also on the business side, we want to know everything.
Okay.
But you can share with me. I always say share 3 things with me with examples. But if you want, you can share more.
Sure.
Yes.
So I talked a little bit already about the empathy side of things.
Yes.
And how I really approach service. For me, there was a foundational moment very early in my career that determined or helped determine how I do things today. I worked at a call center right out of college that really focused on, I don't want to give away too much information, but We had customers from all over the country calling in. And I remember one day sitting there, and it was a typical call center, so there were, cubicles, and you could hear people around you. And I saw this call come into the queue, and the woman across the way from me took the call, and I knew right away from seeing it in the queue and hearing her voice exactly what it was. And there was this process to go through to resolve this issue that took about 45 minutes to an hour.
Wow.
She told the customer, just do X, Y, and Z, and that'll take care of your problem, and hung up. And inevitably, 5 minutes later, that customer was back on the line because that didn't solve the problem. And she knew that wouldn't solve the problem. So I took the call and spent that hour working with them. And there are moments where they had to reboot this machine, and it takes 10, 15 minutes for it to reboot. And I'd wait, I'd chat with them, make sure everything was going okay. So fast forward a week, when management comes around and says, all right, let's go over call stats and how everybody did. All right, woman who took that call, great job. You went through, all these tickets. Oh, Kevin, you're taking too long on yours, and you only helped this many customers. And right then there was a trigger for me. Like, the point is not to churn through the numbers. It's not to get somebody off the phone. It's to solve their problem so they don't have to call back again. So that is the philosophy that I've carried forward and really try to get across to my team. And we have a wonderful management team at Wanzik and the Clean Energy and Infrastructure Group that understands that and allows me to have an IS department or a support team that does that. When I track our key performance indicators, obviously we want to keep our SLAs, our service level agreements with the customer. But I also track things like, the customer satisfaction surveys that come back. I want 95% of those to come back with a 5 or 4 rating on a 5-point scale. Yeah. If they give me a 3, either me or one of my supervisors is getting hold of that person saying, hey, what can we do better? Where do we go wrong? I also track how many times they're touching an incident. So if we're not resolving that case in a certain period of time, I want to make sure that the guys are talking to them, making notes, calling them, sending them a message just saying, hey, I haven't forgotten about you. I'm still looking into this issue. So it was really the takeaway there was it's not about the volume of tickets that you're taking care of. It's the quality of taking care of service that you're taking care of those customers.
And I'm so glad you mentioned that. I'm sorry to interrupt you here, but I'm so glad you mentioned that. There's one thing I like to believe, that as professionals we are called to serve, right? So think about you are in IT, and almost all businesses now have some aspect of IT in there. And if a customer call, you don't serve them, that customer, you is not to have them anymore.
Exactly.
Right. So, and I appreciate the word service in the professional life, and I'm so glad you touched on that. And it doesn't really matter. It matters how many people you serve, but it matters that you serve them well.
Exactly. So
that's I'm really looking forward to hearing more about examples like that.
Well, I think another example of that is. So for years, I would say the same things over and over again to my staff. And eventually I just made a document called Kevinisms of things that they got tired of me saying. And number 1 on the list is kill them with kindness.
Wow, yes.
Another one on the list is, and honestly, I had this list before Ted Lasso. So if you're a Ted Lasso fan and you remember this episode, he told one of his players to be a goldfish because goldfish have a short memory, right? That was a Kevinism long before Ted Lasso. Just because that last caller was not nice to you doesn't mean this next caller isn't going to be nice to you. Or if that last caller was, bad to you last week, maybe they had a bad day. So this week, it's a brand new week. It's, a brand new opportunity to make that impression and to serve them well. And then finally, to your point there, is when people think about IT, they primarily, in my opinion, think about that support desk, right? Because that's who they interact with most of the time. The computer's broken, it's a frustrating experience. We have a team of 50 people in our IS group, many of whom don't do support. They're, leading projects, executing on projects, embedded with the business, trying to understand what they do better to improve technology. But what it comes down to is, if they don't trust that service desk, they're not going to trust the rest of IS to develop solutions to help them improve their business. So we need to be that trustworthy baseline foundation so the rest of our department can succeed.
Wow, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. Can you think of any other examples? I know we talk about the business part now, and if you have some example in the school, in teaching also, you can always tell me about this. And I'm really curious about, because the examples really show, put what you are saying in motion for a lot of professionals. So the examples really, so that's why I usually ask for more example. Can you think of anything else?
Well, I think you're a great example, in my opinion. Both in the teaching and in my role as IT director, one of the big things that I feel is my responsibility is developing future talent. I try to get our engineering team to mentor the service desk people, improve them, build up their skills, keep them engaged. If there's an opportunity for advancement, I want to look at that team to advance. I've had people work with me now at Wanzik for, I want to say 6-7 years that have stuck with me, and I've watched them get promoted. Well, I've been the person promoting them, and it's just, that's one thing that fills me with probably the greatest sense of pride, is watching the people that I've led continue to grow and become leaders themselves. I have a couple supervisors on my team that, started as service desk people, and they, proved themselves, worked their way up, and got promoted. And unfortunately, or fortunately, as the case may be, I have people who've left my organization to be leaders in other organizations. I'm never going to discourage that. That's great. It's sad to leave or to lose great talent, but it's also a great sense of pride. And then on the teaching side of things, again, if I can watch a student that I've had succeed, and I try to keep tabs, I'll Google people from time to time that I remember from class, and just make sure they're doing okay. That's the main thing for me, and to get that feedback from students at the end of each semester of what they liked about class and what they didn't like about each class. And not to pat myself on the back too much, but I've had so many students ask me during our final presentation, when we meet face to face over Teams, do you teach any other classes? And it's like, they must like my class.
That's good. Good. That's good. So what would you say is the a highlight of your career in teaching? Like, you can just give an example. I don't know, maybe I'm asking too many examples, but I like the examples.
That's a great question. So, the teaching that I do for MSUM, I actually taught for the University of Mary for a semester, but the teaching I do now is online asynchronous. So I record my content, as you know, and then really the only interaction I have is via email, and then a final presentation over Teams. So I guess unfortunately I don't have a lot of one-on-one interactions with the students. So it's really just those final presentations where I get to chat with them and get that feedback, and then kind of informally track them afterwards that I get to do. So not a lot of great fulfillment there. I mean, it fills my bucket, just in the sense that I know I'm helping those students, but I don't think there's really a great example, or it's like, oh, I made a difference. You know, I'm teaching them Microsoft Office.
Okay.
It's not like they're changing the world.
Yes, yes, yes. But it's still, I mean, it still is good because, you know, a lot of things, a lot of jobs you use it.
Yep.
And if you make it easier for them to use it, then that's good. That's
Well,
good.
I did just have a student the other day say to me that she hated Microsoft OneNote. She at the job she has, she had already talked to her supervisor about it, and he hated OneNote, but they had this process that was all paper and clunky, and she was able to build this template out in OneNote and use OneDrive to share it where they fill it out. She's like, we both hate OneNote, but I just saved so much time.
There you go. See?
So there we go.
That's good. That's good. That's good. Okay, this is Professional Lunch. We are just going to take another pause here, and then we'll be right back with the best part, which is talking about the challenges that, you know, when you are in the IT field, you might face. All right, we are back with Director Lanners, and we were talking about some of the things that he loves about what he does, and now we're going to talk about some of the challenges that he thinks that when you are in the IT field that you might face. And we're going to seek for example. We're going to ask him for examples and how he deal with those challenges when he comes across them. So, Director Lanners, tell us, according to you, at least 3 of the challenges that you think that professionals in the IT field will face in their career.
Sure.
3 top ones.
Sure. I would say number 1 is a challenge and also an opportunity for students who may be listening in on this, and that is information security. That has really, well, it's been at the forefront for several years, but with the advent of COVID and remote working, and now the invasion in Ukraine, we're seeing an explosion in threats that are out there. You know, some directly to IT departments and information security teams, but probably more. The biggest threat is coming through your end users through phishing, spear phishing, smishing, things like that can allow malware into an environment. So one of the things that we're fortunate at Wanzik and Clean Energy and Infrastructure to have a parent company in MozTech who takes information security very seriously. But at the same time, because they're such a large organization, it can be very overwhelming to your average user to get this message from the parent company about watch out for this and watch out for that. So what I try to do is do a personal kind of lunch and learn training. It's not been as frequently as I wanted to, but I think we're trying to do it twice a year now, where I just get in front of the organization in person and on Teams and kind of go through, this is kind of what we're seeing. This is, you know, you see an email from the CFO, it might not be from the CFO. Yeah. You know, here are some red flags to look for. This is what you need to watch out for. I know one statistic that I gave to the organization just a couple weeks ago is, I guess if I were an end user and I have someone talking to me about information security, my first question is, well, isn't that your job? My job is to build stuff and to do things. So what are you doing? The information security team from MozTech gave me this statistic that blew my mind, that 60% of the incoming emails that come into the organization weren't even delivered to end users because they were malicious. Oh. So, I mean, they're stopping so much, but there's always the bad actors are always trying to be one step ahead of the algorithms and the people who are trying to stop them. So again, it's a challenge, but also an opportunity. I think there's you're going to see growth, and you're already seeing growth in information security jobs out there. So that's probably number one. I guess going hand in hand with that, I think another challenge is an organization's cloud strategy now. You know, everybody wants to go with the cloud, but you can't just put something in the cloud and not think about security. You can't just put something in the cloud and not think about things like latency and you know, how will my end users access this information if it's, you know, not on a server? How can I secure that information if it's not on an internal server? So it's kind of a buzzword, and there are tremendous benefits with the cloud, but there are trade-offs as well. So it's a real challenge to not get too nerdy with the business about what those challenges may be, and work on solutions to overcome those challenges, and making sure we're providing the best product that's available from most places. And again, it comes back to remote work again.
Yes.
You know, if you have your systems hosted in the cloud, whether I'm in Costa Rica or Fargo, you know, I'm having a similar experience versus having to VPN into a data center in a location. So, and then I'd say finally, the other major challenge that I think a lot of organizations are seeing now is related to the Great Resignation. Finding talent and finding talent with experience is becoming more challenging. The people we are finding are requiring higher wages, which is great for them. You know, I think it's, you know, I'm not going to complain that I have to pay people more because it's good for them. But it's becoming more and more difficult. Rather than seeing 50 resumes coming in now for a particular job, I'll maybe get 4 or 5 that are worth looking at. So I think that's something you're going to see continue. You know, where people aren't working second or third jobs, and they're sticking with their primary job, and you want to make that primary job their you know, main source of income. So just looking out for themselves. So.
What can you attribute the shortage of professionals in that area to?
Again, I shouldn't say again. I don't know if I'd necessarily call it a shortage in IS or IT, but more selective.
Okay.
Right? I'm not going to jump ship, or maybe a better example is I am going to jump ship for a better opportunity, but if my organization is keeping good care of me, then, you know, I'm not going to look for something else. Like, for example, I guess if let's say your organization during COVID said, hey, you can work from home if you need to, and, you know, now that things are coming back to normal, hey, you can still work remotely sometimes. If I apply for another job and they're like, no, you have to come into the office every single day, we expect you to be here, you know, 7 to 5, Monday through Friday, and I think twice about doing that, because, you know, you've established yourself at an organization, you've established a trust relationship there. So I think it might be people holding tight to what they know as well.
Okay, very cool. Can you? I guess my next question will be, if a young student right now is watching this or seeing this on whatever, on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, what advice would you give them when it comes to searching for a job right out of school? Because you mentioned something about experience. A lot of them get out of school, they don't have experience. So what advice would you give them?
Well, I guess in IT, a lot of first jobs in IT are going to be in that support area. You know, there are other ones, security and programming and things like that. But I think for a lot of students, that might be the first opportunity that they get. So the advice there to me is, again, to me it comes back to service and empathy, And another thing I tell applicants all the time is I can teach technical skills. You're not going to come into an organization and understand the financial system that they use because you've never been exposed to that before. There's no chance that you know, Sage or what have you. You're not getting taught that sort of stuff in school. So those technical skills can be built up. It's those interpersonal skills that to me are key. Being able to speak to a customer in a language that they understand and not use technical jargon, not talk down to them, and really it comes back to empathy. How would I feel if I got into work and I turned my computer on and there was a blue screen of death? Right, I know how to deal with that. That other person doesn't, right? So if I didn't know what to do here, how would I feel? And it would be incredibly frustrating. And you want to let them know, hey, I understand, man. This is terrible. I'm sorry this is happening to you. This is what we're going to do. So that to me is really the key, that you're learning a lot of technical skills in college. Unfortunately, a lot of those technical skills don't necessarily translate to the workforce, but what does translate to the workforce are those interpersonal skills. And technical skills, what you're proving now, what you're learning now, proves aptitude, in my opinion, to learn a new programming language, to learn a new communications protocol. But the ability to talk to people, that is more important than what I can, the technical skills I can teach you.
Very good, very good, very good. And also, I wanted to ask, and we have students, I know they are a lot less experienced professionals that are gonna try to look for jobs in that field. How rewarding a profession, a career like this can be, both financially and any
Sure.
other way.
Yeah, well, I think financially, IS is good. I guess I think I pay my people well. My wife is a social worker. I tell her what some of my staff makes, and it blows her mind because she's had 20 years of experience under her belt, and it's social work does not pay what IS pays. I'll tell you that. Sorry to any social work majors who may be watching this. I guess, but personally, again, to bring it full circle back to the beginning, being a curious person, and I think a lot of people in IS are curious. We want to understand how things work and how things tick. I go back to my first job, my second job, my third job, all the way to where I am today. And there are those moments, they may happen a couple times a day, they may just happen a couple times a month, where you figure something out and it's just like, yes, that to me is really that joyous moment. That's the rewarding moment where I fixed that thing or I built this, that you can really get from a career in IS.
Wow. Very good, very good. Anything else you want to add? You want to tell the professionals out there that are either watching or listening to this?
Wow, now that's probably the toughest question you've asked.
Yeah.
No, I think it's right now is a great opportunity to be in the IT field. There are lots of opportunities out there. Technology is constantly changing with the cloud. As I mentioned, security, there's opportunities in that realm out there as well. You have to grind. I've been at this for 29 years.
Wow.
And started at the bottom and worked my way up, and now I think I'm at my sweet spot. I know I don't want my boss's job, so I'm good. But I think it's a broad enough field where there's something for everybody, and I think you can find your niche and really make a good career out of it.
Okay. Good. Very good. Very good. If there's anything else you want to add, Director Lanners, this is the chance because I don't want to. You're a very busy person. I don't want to. I don't. Very busy man. I don't want to keep you too much. But we are so glad that you are here for a great episode of Professional Lunch. Anything else you want to add?
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. It's nice that one of my students has, made something of himself.
Yes. Thank you. I appreciate that. Man, we are so glad to have Director Lanners here today for an episode of Professional Lunch. Professional Lunch is about bridging the gap between more experienced professionals and less experienced professionals. So, if anything that we say here today can help you, I suggest that you take it and use it. Empathy. We talk about empathy in the professional world. We talk about service. We as professionals, we are called to serve to make other people's lives better. Now, this is the part that I tell you. It's up to you to make today a great day. So have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.